Hello, my friends, and welcome to the first ever Be Unstoppable podcast. My name is Brittney Cano, and I am your host. In this first episode, we'll be chatting about who is B, what's BBC, my Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within experience, and my goal for this podcast. Not gonna lie, guys, this is my first ever official time hosting a podcast, and I'm pretty nervous. I had to go into the bathroom like literally 10 minutes ago, and I put on my two favorite songs at the moment, and I literally just danced around and jumped with everything that I had, because honestly, sometimes you're just nervous and it's nothing bad, but you just have to channel that energy into something good. And so now I'm doing the dang thing. So let's get into it. So B, that's me. Technically, my birth given name, the name on my birth certificate is Brittney, but my favorite thing to be called is B. She's kind of this alter ego that I created 2 years ago, and it's this part of myself that I tap into when I truly want to feel unstoppable. I love Brittney and I love B equally, but B is this side of me that I can do anything. I can do anything I set my mind to. Everything that Brittney is scared to do, Brittney has got it, and she goes in fiercely. So I just turned 29, and just like you, I'm just figuring it out. For the longest time, I thought I had my whole life planned out. When I was in 6th grade, I decided that I wanted to be a dentist, and I went from there. I joined a dental internship when I was in high school. Right after high school, I went to college, and I decided to do a biology major with a chemistry minor. I shadowed at dental offices for 4 years. I was studying to take my DAT, and then all of a sudden I had this realization that, you know what? I actually don't want to do this. I took a gap year because I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with my life? This identity that I have had since I was literally in 6th grade. I was so scared. I didn't know how to tell my parents, my mom. I felt like everybody was going to feel and think that I was a failure, because that's how I truly felt inside. It was one of the hardest points of my life. I got super lost. I got super depressed. And I honestly just didn't know what I was going to do. I was serving at a hotel in downtown San Antonio at the time. And I just remember people asking me, are you going to be a server your whole life? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with how you choose to make your money in life. But I knew that that was not for me. I always knew that there was something inside of me, this piece of me that was greater, and that I was just truly meant to do something outstanding. And I just couldn't figure out what it was. And I felt like the only thing holding me back was myself, but I didn't know how to change it. So fast forward a little bit. I meet this guy, and his name is Art. He's actually behind the camera right now. At ArtFit Creates. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably know him and love him. He's amazing. We actually dated in college, and then we broke up, just didn't work out. 5 years later, we reconnect. We start dating. We're doing long distance. 3 months later, we get engaged in Cancun, and then I end up moving to this small little town called San Angelo, Texas. And I hated it the first time, and I hated it the second time. Whenever we moved there, I was still kind of in denial, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to study to try and get into dental school. I had so much resistance, and I think the saddest part of this goal that I refused to let go for a really long time was that as much as I wanted it, as much as I wanted this reality to be mine, I never knew that it was going to I always knew that it was never going to come true, because I truly did not believe in myself. I took all the action, right? I told you I studied. I got like straight A's in college, A, B's and different stuff. I shadowed, and I always knew deep down that every single thing that I did was never going to be enough, because on the inside, I felt like I wasn't enough. And so fast forward a little bit, I completely decide, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to let this go. And that's when I feel like I went to the part of my life where I got extremely depressed. And I'm talking about not wanting to be here anymore, depressed. And it was one of the hardest times of my life. And honestly, thank God that I had Art beside me, because I honestly don't know if I would have made it through without him. And so fast forward again, you know what happens in the world. And we decide to move to Houston. So we're getting everything ready. I remember we used to go to this park called the KOA, and we used to go to walks, and we would just like imagine our lives, like how it would be, like, oh, like what do you think it's gonna be like in 6 months? Like when we move to Houston, like we're gonna be gymming over here, and we're gonna be doing this, and we're gonna be doing this. I'm still lost, and I'm like, okay, you know what? We're gonna move. It's like a fresh start for me. What can I do? So, given everything that I've learned in the past, I'm like, okay, I'll go to school again. I'll go to master's. I'll get something that's reliable, something that's going to make me money, constant money. And so I decided to apply for a master's degree to get my CPA in accounting. I seriously had no idea about accounting. I have really never been good at math, but I was like, you know what? This is going to be a reliable job, and this is what we need to survive. So I apply, and then we get here. And one of our good friends, I knew that when we came, Art was doing videography before we moved here. He was doing social media marketing for a company. So I knew that that's what he was going to pursue. So whenever he told me that, I was like, okay, like that's freaking awesome. Like go all in for it. Like you got this. But then I was kind of over here on the side, like, but what am I going to do? And so I did the full shebang. I applied everything, got accepted, was getting emails. And just before I was about to pay, one of our good friends, Sebastian, offered Art this $2,000 marketing course. And one thing that I love about Art is he is one of the most determined and disciplined people that I have ever met in my life. And I honestly feel like it's something that I have always craved to have. And it's just something that I have loved seeing and experiencing being his wife. He literally got this course, and it's like a self-taking course, right? You can do it how you want. He literally got this course, and he did it in like 5 days. Like I'm telling you, this guy did not sleep. Like he literally stayed up and was like doing this course, going to the gym, of course, still, right? Obviously, and then would come home and do this course. And I'm like seeing him take like this massive action, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like. And then all of a sudden, I had this idea. Or did you tell me to join you, or did I ask you? Okay, so I asked him, hey, like, what if I joined you on this, right? And this is me not having a clue about marketing. I did not know what to do. I didn't know how to use a camera. I remember when we were in San Angelo, my good friend Giselle let me take some photos of her, and props to her because she was so supportive because they were trash. But it's just like so crazy looking back. And so I just kind of went for it. I didn't finish the course, but I decided to, I took the course and I was like doing different things like to learn, like we were messaging people, and I was like, okay, like we got to get clients, right? Like whenever we came to Houston, Art had about $6,000 in his bank account. And I mean, we were running out of money, we were taking everything that we could get, and we just fully went for it. So fast forward a little bit, we kind of put ourselves in the right places at the right time, and we ended up getting Anabar. A lot of you guys know that I work for Anabar, and if you don't know, this is me saying that I work for Anabar. I love them so much. We've been with them for 3 years, and fun fact about me is that when I got hired for Anabar, I had never taken a product photo in my life. Like, you guys should see some of the stuff that I was producing whenever I first started working with them. And I'm so thankful for them and for the opportunity that they gave us, because they really bet on us. And honestly, working with them truly taught me how to bet on myself. Whenever I first started with them, like I said, I had never taken a product photo in my life. And being in Houston, there are a lot of awesome creatives here, like so many people chasing their passions and like have been in the game of photography and videography for years. And if I'm being really honest and vulnerable here, it was really hard to be in this space as a beginner, especially when I went into the mindset of it, comparing myself originally, and that I thought that I had to have it all figured out. Which, looking back, I know I don't. I feel like now I have the mindset that it's okay to suck, and it's okay to not be good if you're a beginner. I mean, guys, we got to cut ourselves some slack. Sometimes we get into new things and you're not supposed to be good. Think about when you took on a new sport when you were a child. Were you instantly good? When you were a child and you were learning how to walk, were you instantly good? No, you fell down a couple of times, but your parents weren't yelling at you, and whenever you fell and be like, hey, you freaking suck, just stay down, and it's crazy to me looking back how sometimes we don't give ourselves enough grace and we talk to ourselves so negatively, because just like with everything, it's a learning experience. So moving forward, right, I told you I had a little bit of imposter syndrome, and there was one day that I was on Instagram and I saw this girl post on her story. And she was talking about this girl, and she was saying that she's going to be working with this girl named Allie, and she's going to be working with her for like the next 6 months. She's going to be helping her like conquer her limiting beliefs and like different things, like helping her grow mentally and all these different things. And I was like, wow, this is super awesome. I know at the time there had been like a massive explosion of online coaches at the time, but I had never seen this before, like a mental health coach. And I actually remember talking to my good friend Ari, and it's funny because to this day, I still have the text one night. I remember laying in bed one night and I was just really feeling it, just feeling all of my stuff, all of my baggage, all of my trauma that was just adding up. And I told her that I really want to help the world. You know, I see myself talking on big stages like some of my favorite podcasters and motivational speakers. I see myself as that, but I don't know how to bridge the gap between where I'm at right now and that place. And so when I came across Allie's page, it was like this magical feeling that I cannot even express. All I could think was, the universe sent me this. And now I got to take action, because if it showed up for me, that means that I got to do it. So I follow her, I follow Allie, and she sends me a message, right? And you got to think, most of the time when you follow someone, they're not like, hey, thanks for the follow. And I really attribute this to her, because I feel like if she wouldn't have messaged me, I may or may not at that point in time in my life, I may or may not have had the courage to reach out to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, hey, you're welcome. I actually was like stalking your page, and I was like looking through all of these things on your page, and I feel like I could really use a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. So we sign up for an onboarding call, right? And I'm like ready to go, you know, like I'm ready to just sign me up. How much you want me to pay? Like, I'll do it right now. I need help, kind of like rock bottom type situation. And she's like, okay, awesome. My next availability is 3 weeks. And I'm like, dang, 3 weeks? I'm ready right now. And so I was like, okay, I'll put it on my calendar. You know, days go by, and then the day's here. I finally get my call with Allie. You know, I've been watching her on social media, the different things she's posting, and I'm freaking loving it. So we get the onboarding call, and I'm like ready to go, right? It was like, it's crazy because I think the onboarding call was sometime in September 2021, right? So now it's 2024, and it's really cool to look back and see all the growth that I have experienced since then. So we get the call, and I think we maybe had like 3 calls, right? And I'm like, I told you guys, I'm all in, right? So I write this letter to myself, and I still have this letter to this day. I'm actually working on my little back wall here, and I'll get it together in the next few weeks. And it's something that I really cherish, and I'm going to hang up on this wall, because I feel like that was the first ever commitment that I made to myself, proving to myself that I mattered and that I could do it. I worked with Allie for over a year, and during that year, I was completely and 100% transformed. I broke through things that I never thought that I would get through. You know, growing up, my parents were divorced, and I didn't have the relationship that I wanted to have with my dad. I'm going to try not to cry right now, because I'm going to send him this podcast tomorrow, and he's going to be listening. So if you're listening, Dad, I just want to let you know that I love you so much. I did not have the relationship that I wanted to have with my dad growing up, and it really affected me to my core, you know, and especially I feel like as children, and it's nothing against anybody, but when we're children, we adapt certain beliefs about certain things that happen to us, right? Because our childhood minds are doing the best they can. But when things don't necessarily go our way, we adapt certain beliefs, and then we choose to move forward with them, right? And then all of a sudden, so, you know, it's kind of crazy and strange and wild, but like one small thing can happen. And in that moment, like say hypothetically, my dad gave my brother ice cream and he didn't give me ice cream. Well, in that moment, my baby Brittney brain decided, why don't I get ice cream? Am I not good enough to get ice cream? And then I moved forward. And then hypothetically, another thing happened, and I cemented that belief again. And then something else happened and I cemented again and again and again. And then one day you wake up and you're like 21 to 25 years old and you're like, wow, I really don't feel like I'm good enough. And a lot of the choices that you make result from that belief. And so for the past few years, I have done such extensive work on my mental health journey because I always knew there was a part of me who was destined for absolute greatness. And I didn't want me to be the one holding me back. I'm blanking. This is fine. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking. I didn't want me to be the one holding me back. And yeah, so in the past few years, I have gone to, so actually my coach, Allie, who is certified in NLP, she's an NLP coach. I got certified. I went to like this first course and it was like a 4-day NLP course. I went with one of my best friends, Adri, and it was one of the most amazing experiences that I have, or one of the most amazing courses that I have ever experienced, right? Like I felt like I was almost like a personal development junkie, like at the beginning of it, like teach me all that I can know. Like I gotta tell you guys, this stuff is life-changing, like transforming, and I cannot even begin to express to you how much it has improved the quality of my life, right? So I went to that 4-day course. And then after, I was like, you know what? I got to get more. I got to get more of this. I need to learn more. Like, how else can I improve my life? What else am I holding on to? Like, what baggage am I holding on to that I just need to let go of? So I went to this 14-day course in Phoenix, Arizona, and I am currently a certified master practitioner in NLP and hypnosis. And wow, that was completely life-changing. Fast forward, I've gone to Lewis Howes. He's actually one of my favorite podcasters. The Summit, I think it's called the Summit of Greatness, right? Summit of Greatness. And then, yeah, this past weekend, I went to it was a virtual event, and it was called the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within experience. And you guys, so let me rewind a little bit, right? So back to my coaching with Allie. In NLP, you do these things called breakthrough sessions. And what a breakthrough session is it allows you to release years and tons of trauma in like 8 hours, right? Like things that you may have been holding on to, and like maybe you go to therapy and that's like super great. But I love NLP because you can release so many limiting beliefs and negative emotions so quickly in just like a matter of, this experience can be split up, or usually you can do it in like 8 hours in a day, 8 to 9 hours. And I remember whenever I first did my first breakthrough session with Allie, I did it in the area of life of family because that was one that I was having the most trouble in, and like just kind of like the most inner turmoil. And when I say I died in that room, and the person who came out was someone completely brand new. Okay, so fast forward back to the Tony Robbins event. This event was freaking awesome. And like when I say awesome, it was incredible. So Tony Robbins, I'm sure a lot of you guys know who he is. He's one of the best in the world. He created this like studio at his place of business or in his home, and there was 60,000 people virtually there, right? So we're talking to Tony Robbins, just how you're seeing me right now. I was seeing him through my computer on Zoom, and there was like hundreds of thousands of people behind him. He said he had these like 25-foot LED screens, and it was so cool because we were talking about all these things, and we were able to meet people, guys, from all over the world. Like we broke into breakout sessions, and I met people from Australia. I met people from Berlin. I talked to this girl from Ireland, like so many different people. And I think what was so cool, and it just really put things into perspective, is that we all struggle. It's so easy to get into our own heads and like our own minds and think that we are the main characters, because obviously, we are. I'm not going to admit it. I go through my own main character energy, which I do love, but oftentimes like we feel alone and there's nobody who's going through what we have. Like nobody has daily struggles, but we all do, guys. And so I wanted to share a few things from the Tony Robbins event that really impacted me and honestly encourage you to go. I do not know when the next one is, but I know like all the information is available on his website. There actually may be one at the end of the year, but I think it's a live experience. But a few things that we talked about was, what does an extraordinary life look like for me? And one thing, hold on, I gotta take a sip of water, guys. Talking a lot really makes your mouth dry. Okay, 1 second. Okay. So we talked about, what does an extraordinary life look like for me? And if you're driving, please do not do this. But if you're sitting at home, maybe you're at work and you can take a quick second, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think, what does an extraordinary life look like for me? And have you ever defined it? You know, whenever you think of yourself in the future, how do you see yourself? Is the life that you're living right now the life that you want to be? You know, when you were 12, 13 years old, is this where you imagined where you would be? Or have you always imagined something greater for yourself? And I really think that it's time to take out a piece of paper, take out the notes app in your phone and define it. Because, guys, without a goal, you cannot score, right? Is that how you say it? Without a goal, you cannot score? I guess so. Because, okay. Guys, because, how can I say that? Because if you have nothing to aim for, how do you expect to hit your target? Okay. Guys, because if you don't have a target, something that you're trying to hit, what are you supposed to aim for? You're just going to be aiming all over the place, not knowing what you're going to hit. And then you're going to settle for whatever you get. And I don't know about you, but I know that my time sure is limited here, and I'm trying to make the very best out of all the time that I have left. I also really loved that we brought a lot of things into our awareness. One of the things that they said that I thought it was really funny was, what are my favorite flavors of suffering? And look, I'm going to give it to you straight. I truly believe that vulnerability is my superpower. It took a lot for me to come into myself and to be vulnerable, and vulnerability is what you guys can expect to get from me 100% of the time. One of the reasons that I started this podcast is because I remember my 23-year-old self in my college apartment crying on the floor, completely broken, not knowing where to go, knowing that she would never be a dentist, but still chasing that dream anyway. In horrible relationships with the people around her, not having the friends that she truly wanted to have, and just completely broken. I felt broken. And this is who that podcast is for. I created this podcast because I want to help people truly that were like me, that feel lost, that they don't know where to go. And this one was really interesting because I truly feel like a lot of us, maybe subconscious or conscious, know sometimes that we're doing things, but we don't really 100% know that we're doing them. And I really encourage you to think about, what are your two favorite flavors of suffering? Mine are, I think I put overwhelmed and I put stress, because half the time I'm running around with my head cut off like I'm a little chicken. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I think what really put into perspective is bringing these things into my awareness and asking myself, do these even serve me? And the answer was no. And then I defined it why, right? Because you really have to get clear. Another thing that we talked about was the ultimate success formula, knowing what you want and why you want it. Fun fact, usually, or most of the time, whenever you ask someone what they want, they usually end up telling you what they don't want. And you know, guys, you can say things that you want all day. I should do this, I should do that. And then you end up shitting all over yourself instead of taking action to actually get yourself what you want to be. We talked about finding out what I loved, what I hate, what I'm passionate about, and what I do really want. And honestly, this was a really cool experience because I feel like a lot of times life is so fast paced, you know. You have a job, you're constantly working, maybe you have kids, maybe you have dogs, maybe you're married, you have friends, and it's like, we're always focused on all of these things that we have to get done throughout our day, and we never truly take time to actually just be with ourselves and sit with ourselves and think, what do I want? And I also want to ask you guys, when was the last time that you asked yourself, what do you want? Do you like the friends that you have? Do you like the relationship that you have? Do you like yourself? I thought that was really cool because it just gave me a lot of clarity, and it's something that I have really been searching for lately and kind of getting really clear on what it is that I want. And I'm talking about every area of life, guys: family, relationships, finances, friendships, my physical health. We also learn how to close the gap in different areas and figure out, which was very challenging, right? Like, and this was also in the different areas of life too. So figuring out where you are right now and getting 100% real, right? Like taking accountability, because what? Because you are not a victim. You were the one who got yourself here. So taking accountability and figuring out where I want to go. So remember, I talked about, if we want to get somewhere, we need to know the end goal. Otherwise, how are we going to get there? You got to have something to aim at. So we talked about that, and then about how to close the gaps. We also talked about the power of a team, and I thought this was really interesting, that if your peer group doesn't expect much out of you, it is only a matter of time before you expect nothing from yourself. I love my mom so much, and it turns out that the things that she told me growing up had some truth after all. You really do become who you hang out with. You know, whenever I went to NLP, we actually learned about this study that they had these hearts and I love this, they had these hearts in a petri dish. And I believe it was like, I could be butchering this, after like 2 to 5 minutes, they actually started beating in sync. So you got to think about, like, you're with your friend group, you guys are probably all in sync, right? Like attracts like. We attract the people who are like us, right? And it's kind of crazy that over time, this is something to really think about. You become your friends. And I'm talking about, you pick up the good qualities and you pick up the qualities that you don't like too, right? You got to take the good with the bad. We also talked about the keys to lasting change. And I really want to share these. So the keys to lasting change, number 1, you got to get leverage, right? If you want to change, you need enough leverage to get yourself to change. Number 2, you have to interrupt. And I'm going to tell you guys about this right now. Number 2, you have to interrupt and annihilate the pattern. And number 3, you have to create a new empowering pattern and reinforce it repeatedly, repetition, until it's a habit. So we went through this experience, and this experience was getting rid of our limiting beliefs. A couple of minutes ago, I told you that vulnerability is my superpower, and it's something that I am 100% focused on bringing to this podcast, because I feel like in the world that we live in today, emotions are often seen as a weakness, and growing up, it wasn't really seen as a strength. I very much, for a long time, was shove it down, shove it down, shove it down, and just praying, hoping to God that it never came back up, right? Which I'm sure a lot of you can relate with. So I chose a few limiting beliefs, but the one that held the most power for me was, I am not worthy of love. And so we wrote down our negative limiting belief, and in the next box, we wrote down, what are the negative consequences that you have already experienced? What is a negative consequence that you have already experienced as a result of this belief? And guys, this one was really hard, because we wrote these things down, and then we went into this activity, and we were standing. I had like the lights down low, and man, if there is anything about Tony Robbins, he has one of the most powerful voices that I have ever heard in my life. So got the lights down low. I closed my eyes, and we're standing there. And he's like, okay, I want you to think about this negative limiting belief. I want you to think about the consequences that you have already experienced as a result of this belief. And then he's like, how would this belief keep affecting your life if you held onto it for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 20 years? How are you going to feel? Who have you hurt? All of these questions, guys, and I'm not even exaggerating. I'm asking you to keep an open mind. I stood there. I was crying compulsively. I felt like my abs were in like this full body cramp because I have never experienced so much pain in my life. I literally felt like I was gonna die. It was hurting so bad, and I almost, it's funny, but it's not funny. But whenever I have a trauma release, I'm like I feel like I'm gonna throw up, and I feel like it's just things that my body has been holding on to that I just need to release and get out. I had to go to the bathroom because I thought that was going to happen. And then I came back, and it was just one of the most crazy experiences, right? He was like, yell it out, cry, let it out. How is this going to feel? Like, exemplify it. Make this pain times 10, times 15, times 20. And it was, oh my gosh, I can't even explain to you how much pain. I was like, you know what? If I keep holding on to this limiting belief, it is going to kill me. And I am going to die alone because I am not willing to let go of this belief. I am going to lose all of the people that I love in my life. I'm going to lose my husband. I'm going to lose my friends. Because why? Because I've been rejecting myself for so long. And in turn, by holding on to that limiting belief, I'm rejecting others and not allowing them to love me. Because why? Because if I allow them to love me, there's a risk of me getting hurt. And I was like, you know what? No more. I'm not going to hold on to this belief anymore. Why? Because it doesn't serve me. And it was crazy. When I tell you, I have done a lot of release work, and it was one of the most wildest things I have ever experienced. So overall, the event was 15 out of 10. It was a full-on immersion experience. It was 4 days, guys. The first day was like 15 hours. The second day was like 9 hours. Day 3, 15 hours. And I'm just really grateful for all of the teachings, all of the opportunities, all of the mentors and amazing speakers who showed up. I think one of the coolest things about this virtual experience is they had us jumping and dancing and getting us out of our chair. And we were so interactive. On day 1, I told you guys I was 29. I was feeling so stiff. Like, I cannot even explain to you. I have been having some realizations lately, and I'm like, I'm 29. I feel like I'm 59. I feel so stiff, and just like all these things, like having a hard time moving around. And right now, when I tell you, I feel so much lighter. Earlier, I was telling you about NLP. And they actually did this study too, that whenever you release trauma, you have a higher vertical jump. Isn't that crazy? Because trauma literally weighs you down. So I want you guys to think about this for a second. Whenever you go through a life experience and you decide not to allow yourself to fully move through that pain, but you shove it down instead, I want you to think of it as we're walking through life, right? And you have a backpack, okay? One thing happens to you, right? Maybe you have a horrible breakup, and you go on to the next person, right? Guilty, I've done that before. You go on to the next person. You really don't allow yourself to fully process all of the emotions of everything that happened. So I want you to imagine you're putting a brick in your backpack, okay? You go through life, something else happens to you. Maybe you have a really bad breakup with a friend. Same thing, right? You don't fully process it. Get another brick, throw it in your backpack. Little things happen, little arguments. Maybe you have an argument with your mom or whatever, but you don't truly speak up and use your voice and share how you want to feel. So you just shove it down. You're holding a little bit of resentment. Another brick. Another thing happens. Another brick, another brick, another brick, another brick. You know, all of a sudden you go on 20, 30 years later, you wonder why you don't feel so good. Guys, you're literally carrying like a duffel bag full of bricks. You're walking around with a duffel bag full of bricks. It's crazy, you know. We as humans are not meant to hold on to these things. I think the most beautiful thing about being human is this amazing gift that we have been given to experience emotions on a full range spectrum, right? when you're happy, you're like elated and you feel like you're like over the moon and you feel so joyous, you feel so light and you're free. And when you're sad, you feel extremely sad. Like you're just down in the dumps and it's just like so heavy, but allowing yourself, right? How I told you, you got to take the good with the bad or the good with the sad. Allowing yourself to move through these things is all a part of the human experience. So yeah, it was a really, really cool experience, and I'm really glad that I did it. And honestly, I'm like itching to sign up for another one, but I have my sights in mind, or whatever the quote is, or whatever analogy, to go to another one later this year. Not Tony Robbins, maybe, we'll see. But there's another one that I want to go to, which I'm really excited about it. If you know me, you know I am like a huge personal development person, and I just love to learn and grow. I'm just really trying to squeeze everything out of this life that I can. And with that being said, I now want to announce this new club that I know all of you ladies and maybe some of you men are going to be interested in. And it's called BBC. But get your mind out of the gutter, because this is a personal development podcast. So I have always wanted to start a book club, and I figured now is a perfect opportunity. So I give you BBC, B's Book Club. And one of my goals with this podcast is to share and teach you things that I have learned and picked up on the way, and really help you enrich your life. I do not want your growth to stop here. I really hope that as we embark on this journey together of becoming and being unstoppable, that my podcast inspires you to truly look deeper into yourself and never settle for the life that you have, but reach for the life you want, because anything you can imagine can become real. So with that being said, I am starting a book club. So I've been trying to think about how this is going to work. So let's see, today is March 25th. My goal for the book club is really to have a book every single month. So my next new podcast every Tuesday, is going to be on the 2nd. So ideally, the book club would start on the 1st of the month, and I'll talk about it a little bit, obviously, maybe every week on the podcast, but I'll mainly talk about the book at the end of the month. So the book of the month is going to be, you can't cuss on here. So it's going to be You Are a Bad A, right? For the people listening. And the reason I chose this book, number one, is because it's yellow. It's totally on brand. Just kidding. Is because I really love how she says, I've read this book before, but a long time ago, but I think it's one of those ones that you could totally just pick up and read every year as a great reminder. How to stop doubting your greatness and start living an awesome life. And honestly, if you guys have ever heard of Jen Sincero, she is an amazing author. She also has a book that says You Are a Bad A with Money. I got the audiobook for that one, and it was really great. So book of the month, we will start on April 1st. And no, this is not a joke, for real, April 1st. And then we will talk about it at the end of April. And to encourage you guys, I'm actually going to be doing 2 giveaways of this book. I'm going to be giving away 1 free book on YouTube, and I'm going to be giving 1 free book away on Instagram. I'll be making a post on Instagram, so feel free to enter both to increase your chance. So all you got to do is, for the YouTube giveaway, follow the YouTube and comment down below on the video if you're watching. If you're entering the Instagram giveaway, you're going to follow the Instagram and comment below on the Instagram. And that's it. I will be choosing 2 lucky winners next week on my podcast, and then I'll probably just buy the books on Amazon and send them straight to your house, and you can get started. I think this should be a fairly easy read for you guys, and I really think it's going to improve the quality of life. I feel like overall there's just like so many good things, and it's kind of... I feel like overall there's so many good things, and I feel like this is a good foundation book to get you started, especially if you're new. I keep spitting. Especially if you're new in this personal development space. And going back a little bit, I wanted to talk about why I decided to start this podcast originally. And I decided to start this podcast for you and for me. My 23-year-old self specifically, I remember being in college. I remember being lost, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I would cry every day because I was unhappy with the friendships that I had, the relationships with my parents that I had, my siblings, and I was just feeling completely broken, even though I wasn't, right? None of us are broken. And I'm doing this for that girl. And I'm doing it for you. Because I have said many times, and this is one of my favorite quotes, that if you can imagine it, you can become it. And I want you to think about this. Guys, everything that you see in this world was once in somebody's imagination. The restaurants you go to, the malls, the beautiful architectures that you see, the cars that you're driving, the home that you live in, that was once in somebody's imagination. So who's to say that something that you can imagine cannot be real? Of course it can. Look at me now. 5 months ago, I was imagining that I was going to have a podcast, and I was having many days, I'm human. I was having many days of self-doubt, thinking, could I really do this? Like, could this really be me? Of course it can, right? Because just like Mama said, we can do anything that we set our minds to. And truly, guys, my goal for you being here and sharing however long this podcast is with me, I'm so grateful for your time, and I'm so grateful that you are making the choice to be here and making the choice to grow. And I promise you that I'm going to keep showing up for you. And if you continue this journey with me, your life will never be the same. And that concludes my first episode of the Be Unstoppable podcast. And I just want to say cheers to you. Cheers to me. It's time to become everything we were meant to be. See you next Tuesday.